We have important elections coming up on Tuesday. Over 600 delegates at stake. California, New Jersey, New Mexico, South Dakota, Montana. But we also had elections over the weekend. We had Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Hillary Clinton won both. She crushed in the Virgin Islands. Now, there's not very many votes to begin with there, but of the votes that were cast, she won convincingly, 1,308 votes to 190 votes. Those are not delegate counts. Those are just human beings. So 1,300 to 190. So she wins big in the Virgin Islands. Not a lot of delegates at stake, obviously. That's why not a lot of people are covering it, but I wanted to make sure you guys knew about it. But the bigger event was Puerto Rico, where there actually is a great number of delegates. Obviously, Puerto Rico can't vote in the general election, but they do vote in the primaries, and they have more delegates at stake in Puerto Rico than in some of the states that I just mentioned, like South Dakota, even New Mexico. So how did it go there? Well, there's two issues here. First of all, who won? Hillary Clinton, decisively, again. So the vote was 61% to 38.6%. Now, not nearly as decisively as Virgin Islands, but still a big win for Hillary Clinton. But here is where you begin to see the issue. Now, there's only about 36,000 votes for Hillary Clinton and about a little over 22,000 for Bernie Sanders. That's not a lot of votes. Now, you might not know that, obviously, because the context of how many people vote in Puerto Rico is not something that's commonly known. But actually, Puerto Rico has a great voting record, but not in this election. So that brings us to issue number two, which is what happened behind the scenes. So back in 2008, the number of polling places they had in Puerto Rico in another contested election between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton in the primaries was 1,500. How many did they have this time around? Another contested race? Only 430. So not a lot of polling places up, right? Now, one of the reasons they give is understandable. They say, hey, look, we're having financial trouble in Puerto Rico. And so that was part of what informed our decisions. Okay, that would be far more understandable. And if they left it there, then I say, okay, maybe we move on. But the rest of the explanation is not good. Puerto Rico's Democratic Party president, Roberto Prats, said, if the problem is that many people are participating, that's a good problem to have. The important thing is that the voters had the opportunity to exercise their right to vote. But wait a minute, that's exactly the problem. People were waiting in line for 2-3 hours under the sun in Puerto Rico, and a lot of them went home. And I'm going to give you context on that in a second. That means they did not participate. Now, this is the same terrible excuse we've seen in Arizona, New York, and other places. Wisconsin, oh, there are long lines. That's a good thing because people are participating in the system. No, those same number of people would participate, and even more if you had more polling places open, and then they wouldn't have to wait 2 or 3 hours in line. So that is a very poor excuse. Now, context. While local officials expected more than 700,000 people to vote, only 60,671 made it to the ballot box. Now, wow, that is so much less than they expected. Well, that's what happens if you close most of the polling places. More than 2/3 of the polling places have been closed. This is the second time. Rhode Island, more than 2/3 of the polling places were closed. So more context for you guys. Though voter turnout in Puerto Rico is usually much higher than in the 50 U.S. states, Think Progress explains, Sunday's Democratic race had a dismal showing of just 3.45% of eligible voters. Okay, so obviously there's something amiss in what happened in Puerto Rico. Now, this is when Sanders supporters come in and say, you see, the system is rigged. And the Clinton supporters usually come in and go, oh, just stop your crying already, we won, and it wasn't even close, and it wouldn't have been close either way, etc. Here's what I say. I don't know. How do I know how they made this decision and if there was something that the Democratic Party did to benefit Hillary Clinton? Because there's no internal emails, there's no evidence. On the face of it, it doesn't look good. Those are bad percentages. When they normally vote way higher than the 50 U.S. states, and now they're voting only at 3.5%. It got less than 10% of the number of voters that they expected, 2 to 3 hour lines. Even if it doesn't affect Clinton Sanders at all, and the margin was big and we don't know that it would have, right? It's still not good for democracy. So we should make sure, whether the problems are in New York, Rhode Island, or Puerto Rico, that we get on top of it so we fix it for the next election. Can someone look into it so that we have confidence in our democracy? Now, meanwhile, one last fact here that makes me go, Tweet sent out, Democratic Party of PR of Puerto Rico tells MSNBC that the Sanders campaign is the one that requested a cut in the number of polling stations today. Now, that seems unlikely because the more people that vote, especially on the day of the election, the more it has helped Bernie Sanders. So, for example, Hillary Clinton actually does better, especially in Arizona was a great example, with mail-in ballots. So older voters tend to do mail-in ballots. But day of election, the Sanders campaign throughout this entire election has asked for more polling places, not less. So what did the Sanders camp say about these allegations that they wanted less polling places in Puerto Rico? Quote, completely false. So who do I believe? The Democratic Party in Puerto Rico is saying, oh, yeah, this is the one place that the Bernie Sanders people decided, let's keep voter turnout low. Well, that doesn't jive with any of the other evidence. And so the Sanders camp has longer quotes about how this is absolutely outrageous, not remotely true. Of course they didn't want less polling places. They wanted more polling places in Puerto Rico. So that part of the story makes the rest of the story even more questionable, because if you're saying something that lacking in credibility about who asked for less polling places, it makes me wonder about your credibility for the overall election. Stop closing polling places. We want more of those, not less of those, especially if you're in the Democratic Party and you're arguing on behalf of voting rights and saying that Republicans are making sure people don't vote and we're the party in favor of more voting. This is not helping your case.